In this movie, we tackle another workhorse of CSS, the ID selector. Now, these selectors are designed to be applied to a single unique element on a web page that is using a matching ID attribute. So they are very similar to class selectors, so some of the same rules apply, including some of the things we talked about with naming. However, ID selectors cannot be applied to multiple objects on a single page. The ID style can be applied across an entire website, but only once per page. Well, that's the specification anyway. Some browsers will allow you to apply it multiple times, but it's extremely poor practice to use ID selectors for this purpose. One of the reasons why is, well, it's kind of against the specification, but your ID attributes are also going to be used to uniquely identify elements for other HTML purposes and for purposes of JavaScript operations. So following the specification of once per page will make everything go a lot smoother. However, if you find that the rule you're using your ID selector with needs to be applied to multiple items, it's best just to change that over to a class rather than trying to misuse some of our specifications. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump in here and look at how we can create and apply a couple of ID selectors. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and ID a couple of different paragraphs. So I'll go ahead and grab this first paragraph inside of our little section that we've identified as a short history of CSS Sandbox, and I'll put in the ID attribute, and I will say this is para 1 or paragraph 1. Now you can set up any names that you want for your IDs. And if you notice, I'm kind of doing something a little bit different than what I did with my classes, because my names here are kind of based on location. Now this is location of specific content in relation to each other, and unless I plan on shifting the content around, this is never going to change. So whenever you're dealing with tagging up your content, it's a little bit different than tagging up your structural elements that will be moving around on the page somewhat. So here I've got the second paragraph ID'd as para 2, and so I'm going to go ahead and jump back up to the top, and I'll create my ID rules. Now our ID rules are going to require us to put a special symbol on them to indicate that they are the ID rules. Now if you notice down below, I did just put ID and then the name without any kind of special symbol. But the special symbol for ID selectors is the hash mark or the pound symbol, depending on what your lingo is. So that indicates that I want to select a specific ID. So I want to do paragraph 1. And I'll go ahead and use our good little background color at this point. And I'll set this to blue. And then I'll go ahead and set up the other style here, which is paragraph 2. And I'll set its background color to yellow. I'll save that and then jump over and refresh. And there we go. So it's only applying the style to that specific item. Now, where our ID selectors come in really handy is when we're doing our layout. Because with our structures, we will be able to specify a specific structure as being an element for our layout. So we can group together, say this content up here at the top, as being a header. And then we can apply our different styles to this ID header and position our item as we need to. So we're really going to see our ID selectors whenever it comes to page layout, and we will also see that whenever we need to apply a very specific style to a single element anywhere on our website. Keep in mind that you will want to apply some of the same naming conventions whenever you are setting up your ID selectors as you had to follow with your class selectors. And with that in mind, that concludes this look at ID selectors.